Welcome to the chapter on the pen tool. Now the pen tool is located here in the tools bar. Shortcut is letter P. And we notice we have some menu options that have opened up. The same familiar options that you've seen, but a couple extras here. We have the three same options that we've seen before in the shapes and vectors, but this fill pixel is actually grayed out. And you have the option with shape and path. We're going to use the path instead. What's great about the path? By creating a path, you make perfect selections. Your path can be transformed into a selection. It's more precise. You can save your paths. You can use them in other projects or other files. So you can create a whole library of paths and then use them elsewhere. They're exportable to Illustrator and they're resolution independent. So there's a lot of benefits to using the pen tool. Unfortunately, with selections like hair, you can't use the pen tool and you have to use other selection tools. But for the most part, most things that have these kind of types of paths, you can use the pen tool. And you can get pretty accurate and pretty fast with them. But to use it, you basically just, when you see this pen cursor as you see here, you see a little X that's next to it. This means you're ready to go. So basically you just click, which provides an anchor point, your first anchor point. When you click again, watch how this filled becomes hollow and the next one that I place becomes filled. This is telling you which one's going to be the next one. So now you know this was my last one. I'm going to click again, and then I'm going to click again, and then I'm going to click here. When you get to the end, you'll see that this cursor changes into a hollow O. This means that you're at your beginning, and when you click, this will close the path for you. Notice that my cursor has changed back to where I have that X. That means I'm ready to go again to create another path. But I see that I've created this square, but it seems it's a little off. Well, what's great about the pen tool is if you have the pen tool selected, you press the control key, it becomes a direct selection tool. Keep it pressed and click on that path and you'll see some anchor points that will open up. Hold down your control key and you can move this down into a location that you need, and that will take care of that for you. Let go and it goes back to being the pen tool. So that's a nice little shortcut instead of going over here to the tools panel and selecting the direct selection tool. Alright, now let's go over to something that's a little bit harder, is the circle, the one that everybody loves so much. Because we can create straight paths all day, but I think you get the point. So the goal also of using the pen tool is to, trace the object or create the path with as minimal anchor points as you can. The less the better, but sometimes you do have to provide extras, but the goal is to provide, if you can do it with few as possible, that's great. And with the circle, it should be about 4. You should use 4 anchor points to create the circle. Now, this is tricky. If we did the same thing that we did over here, and we click, and click, and click, and click, and click, well, we didn't create the circle. So there's a problem. So how do we get to the circle part? Well, we created this path, so how can I get rid of this path? I could just press the backspace key, and that will get rid of it. I could go over to the path and delete the path, remember? Since we didn't save our path here on the square, it also erased that. So the pen tool has another function to help you out. You can place a point, and how do we know we can place a point when we're ready to go? Because we see the X on the cursor. So you're going to click once. Now the next time that you click, you're going to click and drag and watch what happens. Click and drag in the opposite direction. When you drag in the opposite direction, notice I have these weird handles coming out. These are direction handles. You notice that my path between the two anchor points is stretching out, and I can now conform it to the circle. Let go. Notice that it changes back to the pen tool. Come over to this, click and drag out again in the opposite direction. Now you can see that I messed up. So this is going to be real fun, I can tell later. But you know what? We're going to leave it as a mistake. I'm going to come over here, click, and drag out in the opposite direction to create a C. And I can change my direction handles. And then I'm going to click back to the beginning spot, and I'm going to drag out my handle. There we go. Now you can see that my circle looks a little lopsided, and I'm going to turn off the visibility, and you can see that it's not a perfect circle. This is the fun part with the pen tool. But Photoshop has provided other things to help you with this, and again, pressing the control key and then click on the path will open up those direction handles again. and you can move them around to your liking. You can, if you notice that my cursor changes to a minus when you see that, if I were to click on this anchor point, it will delete it. And then it will connect the two segments together. Now I can use that. That would be an idea. So let me press the control key to change it to direct selection, and I can drag this out, and I can resize this by pushing it in or dragging it out or changing it around. But it becomes tricky. Alright, now let's see how I did. So let me turn this off. It looks a little bit better, but I still have my problem over here. I can add a point by clicking on the path, which will provide a point here. And then I can use the direct selection tool and move this into position if I want to. Alright, but I don't want that. So if I were to go on the anchor point and click again, it will delete it for me. Now I have this direction handle. You cannot resize or play around with the direction handle while you have this pin cursor. That's a no-no. You press the control key, and this will allow you to mess with the direction handle. So there we go. It's a little bit better. And I'll probably have to come over here and use this to resize it. Now, here's another thing. If I press my control key and I click on here, you'll see that when I click on the anchor point, it shows both direction angles. Alright? When I press the control key, it will resize both sides. Both sides will move, and I can move it. Now, if I were to press Alt, now I broke the connection between the two. Now we'll only move this side. And that's pressing Alt and selecting a direction handle, which you can see my cursor has changed. Now you're probably saying, but now you broke the connection. Okay, that's nice, but how do I get them both back together? Press Control Alt, and this will bring them back together. Alright, so you didn't lose it, but you have to do just a couple extra steps. So as you can see here, I've made a mess of this circle. So in the next lesson, I'm going to show you another way of creating a circle.